that was the point where I was like, this isn't how life is meant to be. So I did some research and I came across this TED talk about matrescence. And matrescence is the transformation a woman goes through when she becomes a mother, just like adolescence, but it's not a term that we are used to within society. And when I watched this TED talk, I just burst into tears because this was something real.
Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
How are you?
Excited for our conversation today?
I am very excited. I am thrilled to have you on. When I got connected with you, I read about what you're writing about in LinkedIn and all the great things that you're studying, both well inside and outside of your workplace,
Yep.
helping working moms like yourself, myself. And I knew that you had so much to offer. So thrilled to have you here today, Sarah. Tell us about yourself in 2 minutes or less.
And so my name is Sara Pantry. I am originally from the UK, but I have been living in Singapore for the last 8 years. I originally thought I'd come for 2 years and have been here for a lot longer. Because I met my husband here, we got married, had a baby. So this really feels like home now. I currently work at LinkedIn as a senior workplace leader for APAC. And previous to that, I worked for the British Embassy doing workplace and corporate real estate. And pre that, I was in London working for Burberry. So a lot of experience on workplace culture. And very recently, since I had my son, the world of matrescence, which is something that I'm very passionate and looking forward to talking to you about today.
Yes, it's such an interesting word when you first introduced it to me, but I would love to, just dive into how you found out about it, what you learned about it, and what you're doing for that. But just a little before that, maybe you could tell us what a day in your life looks like today for Sarah Petrie.
Sure. My son is my alarm clock. He usually wakes up around 6 a.m. So that's when the house gets up. And we get ready together. So we sit down and we have breakfast as a family. I always start my day before that with a little bit of gratitude of what I'm thankful for before I even get out of bed to set me in the right mindset. And then, up with my son, breakfast together. We always have a bit of a fight who's if he's going to do his teeth or not, get him ready for nursery. When he then goes off to nursery, I often have a quick swim or some sort of exercise before I start my day. And then I head into the LinkedIn office and have my day at work, which is often lots of meetings. I want to say back to back, but it's not always back to back. But meetings, and I have a larger reach within APAC. So that's often could be in Singapore, Australia, KL, and then come home around 5:30 and spend a couple of hours with my son either playing or going down to the pool. And then he goes up to bed at 7. And then it's time for me and my husband before we go to bed.
Nice. Sounds really packed. And I know that besides just work, you are very involved. You have a lot of extracurricular activities with your LeanIn circle, and you're doing different talks and things like that. So, yes, tell us how you do all you do.
I think it's an interesting question because it's something that I've had to kind of learn and relearn since I became a mother. Because obviously, Luca and my husband as a family are my primary concern. And I wanted to be the best mother and the best wife that I could be. However, that image in my head of what that meant, as well as having a career, collided. So I've had to kind of relearn what that means. And it sounds crazy, but actually teach myself that when I do less, I achieve more. So understanding that I need some time for myself, whether that would be the swim in the morning or actually even on my commute to work, where I do meditation or some reading, and really looking at what I'm doing that kind of builds my energy, which is often around speaking to other people or working on something that I'm passionate about, actually makes me a better wife and a better mother for Luca. So being able to incorporate those into my day to day is really important. And kind of finding those micro moments of joy or what I'm grateful for or what's building my energy alongside some of the other pieces. So yes, I do a lot, but there are things I'm really passionate about that let me work towards my purpose, I feel, and the bigger picture of how it can help people.
Great. Yeah, I hear a lot about how you're managing your energy and how you're prioritizing what gives you energy and giving time and space for it such that you realize that doing less is more. That sounds like something that takes a bit of time to learn. And even before this, when we were having a conversation, you talked about how busyness is often worn as a badge of honor. So I
Yeah.
guess that's, yeah, something related there.
It's definitely something that I'm really conscious
Mm,
of at the moment because everyone
mm,
says, "Oh, how are you? Busy?" And you just go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, really busy." But actually, does it need to be that way? Because I feel like we just do that as an automatic and it's part of what society is telling us it should
mm,
be. But actually, that busyness causes burnout because if we rest, we think we're being lazy. You know, like if you're sitting down and doing nothing, we think, well, and I've got a massive to-do list to do and I should be doing that. So if I'm not doing it, I'm lazy, which means that you always keep going and you're always moving forward. But what I've actually learned is when I rest and I have given my body a chance to recuperate, to nurture myself, that actually I can achieve more then than really, really pushing when there's a lot of friction to do that. And then I don't sleep really, you know, I'm tired all the time, I'm cranky. I'm actually showing up as a person that isn't me. And then it causes a bigger impact on not just my life, but other people's lives that I'm actually coming into contact with.
such wise words. And I'm sure the journey of becoming a mom played a big part of this learning and unlearning. So, bring us back to when you became a mom or through that process. How did that change your perspective about this, about life, about work, and your approach?
Yeah. I often say to people, I've been a manager of large teams for a long time. And up until I had my son, I thought I had it down. I was like, I'm supportive, I get it, you know, I'm there, I help them through that transition of coming back to work and what that means. Oh my goodness,
Mhm.
I was so far off. I can't believe how far off I was. And I treated motherhood just like anything else in my life. You know, what always worked for me is if you work hard and you do your research and you apply
Mm.
it, then you will be successful. So I did exactly that. I must have read about 50 books. I went to every parenting class, every hypnobirthing class. I had checklists for everything that I needed. I made my husband do all of it as well. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
yeah, I'm there. I've done it. You know, I've applied the success measures that's always worked in my life. And, you know, we're good. This is going to be the way to go. And then I had my son, and it wasn't COVID. You know, there was a lot of restrictions, which meant it wasn't as easy for the social elements of parenting classes. You couldn't have a doula in the hospital and, you know, all these kind of things. But when I actually had my son, it just hit me in a way that I couldn't have anticipated. It felt like a massive kick in the stomach. I've always been the social connector for people,
Mm.
you know, the person that people can rely on, that comes to, that keeps people together and solves issues and, you know, is good at
Mm.
it. However, when I had my son, I just completely contracted. I didn't want to speak to anybody. I didn't even want to like send my friends or my family pictures of the baby. I had a lot of healthcare professionals saying to me, fill out this postpartum depression questionnaire. I knew it wasn't that, but I didn't understand where the feelings were coming from and how alien they felt because it didn't feel like me. And in that expansion from me to we, as the way I say, I, I
Mm.
know what to do. You know, like all these things that usually if I made a decision, I would see consequences if it was the wrong one. And suddenly I had this tiny little baby that I loved more than anything else on this earth. And I wanted to give him absolutely everything. And the choice paralyzed me because if I made the wrong one, he'd be the one that suffered.
Mhm.
So I looked for a lot of external validation, whether it be podcasts, social media, books, you know, and there was
Mm.
so much conflicting information. It was difficult to cut through the noise. And I often went and did things I wasn't 100% happy with and, you know, came through from there. So and then at that point, 5 months postpartum, I then went back to work full time of having to juggle
Mhm.
my son and be that person. I'd always had a successful career and was always achieving, and they just collided. You know, like I didn't feel like I could be the mother that I wanted to be. So I felt like I was missing out on so much for not being.
Mm.
Also felt like at work I wasn't the person that I was before. And how could I even come to being able to deliver what I used to deliver? And I did that for about 6 months. And that was when I started to get panic attacks. I'd never had panic
Mm.
attacks any time in my life. And that's what happened. And that was the point where I was like, this isn't how life is meant to be.
Mm.
To be this. So I did some research. I just got on and did everything that I had done before and did some research. And I came across this TED talk about matrescence. And matrescence is the transformation a woman goes through when she becomes a mother. just like adolescence, but we don't know it in that way. It's not a term that we are used to within society. And when I watched this TED talk, I just burst into tears because this was something real. It's not
Mm.
in my head. It was a profound change in me, and it meant I wasn't broken. Because from my outside, I could see everybody getting on with it and doing well and enjoying it. And, like I just felt desperate. I was like, what's wrong with me? And
Mm.
that's where I came across this term. I then went and did some training with Amy Taylor Kabaz through Mama Rising and became a matrescence practitioner that teaches you how to support women through this huge transition or transformation. And yeah, that's where I decided we need to make this mainstream. People need to understand the transformation that they go through. And words make worlds, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Someone starts talking about it and starts to bring some more awareness. What an amazing change we could make in the world, not just for us as mothers, but for the next generation, for companies, their partners. Because if the mother is thriving and happy, the rest of her family will be too.
Mm. Wow, thanks so much for bringing us back to that really roller coaster period of your life, Sarah. Actually, since you've mentioned matrescence, it's appeared a lot now in my feed, and you were the one who first basically educated me about matrescence, and a bulb did light up in my head when I heard that, because it made a lot of sense for a lot of the things that I personally was going through, and also with people that I was speaking with, especially through the podcast, and realizing that it's almost like a scientific natural progression of a woman going into motherhood made it and made it more legitimate, I suppose, and validated a lot of the experiences that I and other women were feeling. So for yourself, like now that you knew this was what you were going through, yeah, how did that make a difference?
Yeah.
In-
Matrescence as a word impacts every single woman that becomes a mother. However,
Mm.
everyone's experience can be very different because it's personal. And it
Mm.
impacts every single aspect of your life, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, social, economic, like literally that change impacts every single bit of your life. So for me, yes, 100%. I think that change had already started happening before I even understood what it was. But
Mm.
understanding that this was something that everybody goes through and understanding that I didn't need to bounce backwards to where I was before, because actually that's not possible. Actually leaning into what you're becoming
Mm.
and not just seeing the negative, because often a lot of the things that we look at for motherhood is negative. So you have like the maternity penalty, if you're looking at mum guilt, if you're looking at mum brain, all these things in our society
Mm. Yeah.
and negative motion on them. But when you start to break it down, and like you said,
Mm.
understand the science behind it,
Mhm.
understands that if you took a brain scan of every woman in the world, a computer algorithm could tell with 100% accuracy who was a mother and who wasn't, because the changes to the brain are that profound. These pieces, I think,
Wow.
we don't understand. We don't know these because we're not taught them, or
Yeah.
we're not told. And if you're looking at mum guilt, like a lot of women go back to work in Asia 3 months, 12 weeks postpartum. Well, actually, at 6 months postpartum,
Mm.
the hormones in your brain are at their peak. And those hormones that are at their peak make you channel in just to your baby to keep it alive, keep it with you that whole time. So that's actually mum guilt of coming back to work and feeling that
Mm.
split. It's not something
Mm.
you can change yourself. That is actually a response of your body. And I think if we can understand some of
Mm.
the research and the science behind it, it normalizes it. And it makes us feel like it's not just us. It's not just our issue to fix. Actually, we need to be able to support parents, whether they're mothers or fathers, coming back to work postpartum or from maternity leave in different ways. Because actually, if you're looking at it, we don't do it right. And we ask ourselves every International Women's Day, why have we not got more women in senior positions in global companies? But
Right.
we don't address motherhood. So
Right.
from that perspective, I think, yes, 100% it has changed my perspective on how
Mm.
I act myself, or even for that inner critic, like
Mm.
that I'm not enough or what I'm doing isn't enough. Because I actually answer back to that now and say, well, I'm only 2.5 years old as a mum. I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect a half-year-old to know everything. Why should I,
Yeah.
like move from those? that's from a personal perspective. And I've also realigned my own
Mm,
definition of what a good mother is and what a
mm,
successful woman is. So
mm,
I'm kind of taking myself on that journey, what suits me rather than what I think I should. So those
mm.
are some of the big things that I've done myself. But I also feel that there are other ways that we can support each other and come together. That's why I've set up my LeanIn circle in Singapore for working mothers to be able to hold space and to share and support each other. Because when women come together to support each other, amazing, beautiful things happen. But we're taught that we should be able to do this on our own, which isn't the case.
Right. So many thoughts there, Sarah. Yeah, when you're talking, I just remember a quote that really spoke to me as well, is that when a child is born, a mother is born. And it feels almost like you should know how to do all these things because you have the information at your hands. But the truth is, nothing really goes according to plan A. I've never had anybody say, like, it went exactly how I expected it. And so we're continually learning, and to know that we are even just giving ourselves grace to realize that this is actually something new to not just ourselves, but even like the larger community, even the scientific community, right? About matrescence and how it is affecting, yeah, women, and how our brains, our whole bodies are changing, and that we're no longer the same person. I think that that's super powerful, and it's almost freeing, yeah, to realize that I'm just a new Sarah, right? It's just a different version of me that I'm learning and figuring out at the same time.
And I think as well, one of the other things that's been a massive realization for me of becoming a mother
Mhm.
is to trust my intuition and my
Mhm.
instinct. Because actually, what is right for me might not be right for you.
Mhm.
Everyone has their own opinions. There's so many parenting books, there's so much noise. But actually, if you listen to that first little whisper in that situation, especially in motherhood, and just
Mhm.
go with it, even if it's not the right thing, you can change it and move it moving forward. But 98% of the time, that's what you should be doing. But we have been taught in society to trust outward sources, whether they be the internet, whether they be, books or
Mhm.
doctors or
Experts.
experts, because we don't know. But
Right.
actually, being able to reconnect to yourself. And that's the same thing in finding the joy, finding things that you can manage your energy. What do you love to do?
Mhm.
And being able to put those into your day because that makes you a better person, both at work and as a
Mhm.
mother.
Mhm.
I often say when we become mothers, we become martyrs. We believe that everybody else is more important than us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we do everything else for everybody else, but
Yeah.
and about ourselves, and then we get sick or we burn out. So,
Right.
it's how can we start
Strange.
feeling? Yeah, yeah. But it's
Yeah, it's a strange how that's like what we expected, or how we were taught, or these were the role models who were paraded in front of us, those who really sacrifice, and to be a mom is to really give your all and, lay your career down and things like that. I think to a certain extent it's that are a lot of costs involved, but we don't have to lose ourselves, I suppose.
or even just find yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like you say, when a baby is born, so is a mother. Like actually being able to find yourself in that, but also allowing yourself to have needs and wants and being able to set those boundaries and to be able to do some of those things is massive because it's
Mm.
you're going to take through no matter what you're doing, whether it be
Yeah.
mothering, being a partner, in a
Right.
role,
Mhm.
volunteering, however that works. Actually,
Mm.
these things, those skills are life skills that are invaluable.
Yep. So, Sarah, how did this revelation change or impact your relationship with your spouse, perhaps? Is there matrescence? Did y'all find out if there was such a thing that men go through?
Yeah. I'm very fortunate that I've got a very hands-on husband who wants to understand. And I think when I was going through those first 6 to 12 months with my son, he didn't recognize the person that was there either. And he desperately wanted to help, but he didn't know what to do. And I didn't know what I needed either. So I think, me going through and learning about matrescence, I've been able to share some of these things with him, especially around like the internal split of, wanting to go to work, but also wanting to be at home, the maternal load of being able to share out some of the responsibility. So it's not all on me, like nursery isn't always mummy. Or, if he's got doctor's appointments or other appointments that we're sharing the load more equally. and kind of going through that journey with me. They do say that there is such thing as matrescence. I think what I've been reading about is that men often go through this about 12 months after the mother. Interestingly enough, and I think that's probably just because they don't have the same physiological changes, etc. So there are elements, obviously, when men become fathers, that does impact to the same extent. I don't know, and I haven't done enough, research on it. But yes, there definitely are those kind of changes that kind of go through from. And I think for me and my husband, Stefan, actually, it's created a platform where we feel that we can talk to each other, that there's less resentment if he's doing something that I don't agree with, or vice versa, that we have a level playing field there to be able to raise it together without it getting to a point where it's coming from anger or, really strong resentment. Actually, we're able to call it out and a lot earlier than we would have previously.
Mm. Yeah, actually, I really would love to go on this a little bit more because resentment is a common kind of experience that we feel, especially in the early years of parenthood towards each other. I think as a mom, there is a certain kind of resentment towards the husband and how, you wish they would be doing more and things like that. Yeah, talk us through how, if at all, like you all have managed to overcome that.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on this because I'm going through the journey, like hand in hand alongside all of you. And I don't think you're ever going to get away 100% of resentment. There are some times where I'm like, "Oh, I wish he would get up earlier with Luca, or, like he's away for work a lot and I'm not, so I'm here holding the plate, etc., etc." But I think when those kind of feelings come through, like I said, it's being able to have confidence that I can raise those in a way that is not from a place of anger, but just to explain, hey, when you're away and you do this, this means X. So when you are back, I'm going to go away, or I'm going to go and do something, or actually you're going to put Luca to bed. So there's different ways of how you can kind of share out what that means. I also think of like understanding where each person's coming from. There's some things that
Mm,
I really, really hate to do.
mm.
Washing up is one of them. And my husband actually quite enjoys it, So, he enjoys
Brings
like
right.
doing a podcast in and does the washing up. So, it's actually kind of understanding where each person is coming from to say, hey, how are we going to divvy this up? Are there things that you prefer to do that I don't? If there's things we both hate, like how do we do it together, or what do we do? And I also kind of look at it now as he
Mm,
does do these things. If there is resentment or there is something that I am feeling off with, it's
mm,
not usually it's not using it, him doing it on purpose.
right.
Sometimes it's things that just build up and, he's unaware, the same from the other side. So it's really that kind of open two-way communication. Share the responsibilities, understand when you need time for yourself to be able to set those boundaries, but having the kind of respect, I suppose, to be able to voice what you are feeling in an
Mm,
environment that is conducive to have a solution.
mm. Yeah. It's interesting how having a child brings out different aspect that at least to me wasn't obvious before, having children of each other that like, I mean, I knew that my husband was someone who was an introvert, but I didn't realize what that really meant. And I'm an extrovert, right? Like what that really meant in terms of what gave him energy, like being with a child doesn't actually give him, it drains it much more for him than for me actually. And like going out, like he would need to be at home. I need to go out of the kid. And so it was just a big learning, I think,
Mhm. It
and we
helps
continue
and
to
how to
learn.
work as a unit, right? Like
Yeah.
I listened to an amazing podcast by Brené Brown, and she was saying, like have your number. Like if you're coming back and you're a 2, then the person needs to pick the second. I'm an 8, so I'll take your 2 and I'll be the 10. But it's the same
Yeah.
the other way around. Like what is that kind of transfer of energy? Because we're not always going to be on top of the world and be able to take everything as it comes. And there's a partnership there, right? So yeah, that's how I would look, like what are those ways that you can work towards together to make it work?
Mm, yes, making it work indeed. So, Sarah, you are raising a child outside of your home country. What have been the big learnings or differences, yeah, that you've experienced in this time?
It's hard to tell because I only got one baby and I've done it in Singapore. So I don't know any
Yeah.
difference. But I suppose one of the big learnings for me is find your tribe.
Hmm.
because I wasn't around friends and family. So a lot of my best friends have had kids and they're at home. When I was in Singapore, I went to Beloved Bumps and we were putting to groups, to meet other mums, etc. However, you don't
Mm.
have the 25 years of friendship where you
Yeah.
feel safe, secure, that you can be vulnerable. And one of the
Right.
big things for me was I didn't feel like I had anyone to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, because I was
Mm.
worried that I would be labeled as a bad mum or, like I wasn't able to cope. Those weren't the things that I wanted to be portraying. So, kind of creating your own village, I suppose, making sure that you've got people that you need around you and being able to be in an environment where you have support that isn't just your husband, that isn't just your helper, that isn't just your work colleagues. Actually, having people that can hold space and that you feel safe to be able to raise things because everyone's going through similar.
So where have you been able to find your tribe, your support?
That's why I created the LeanIn Circle.
Mm.
So we have 11 ladies. We meet once a month and we go through some of the concepts of matrescence and other subjects which we think are going to be helpful. But really, primarily, we sit together and we hold space for each other. It's not about fixing, but it's being able to voice how you're feeling and understanding that you've got a support network around you that is more than just a play date. And I mean, this is the Lean Circle isn't about the
Yeah.
baby. It's about the mother and what you are going through and how that works, whether it be a transition back to work after having your second baby or not having it, being sleep deprived at 3 because your kids still aren't sleeping or, being put forward for a promotion, not getting it because, whatever that means or whatever you need in that point. And also trying to arm ourselves with some knowledge around what matrescence mean or some of the other concepts, whether it be finances for mothers or mum guilt, what that means, or your versions of success.
Wonderful. And I think it's a good time to segue into how you bring your learnings into your workplace in LinkedIn. I feel like you're almost like a champion for that at your work, and you're probably known for that, which is how I even met you because of your colleague who said, "Hey, you should definitely meet Sarah because
Yeah.
she's such a big proponent of supporting working moms and in LinkedIn." So yes, tell us about how that journey has been and what's it like in your company.
I'm very fortunate, and I know that other people aren't as fortunate as I am to be working for a company like LinkedIn because they were very focused on the person as a whole. And one of the things that I love about working for LinkedIn is that they try to make the invisible visible. So a way that they do that and in a very strong network is our ERGs, which is an employee resource group. And we have multiple like women at LinkedIn, you've got Out In, you've got Embrace, you've got so many different groups that give you belonging, I suppose, first of all, and something to be part of. And the one that I'm very active in is Families at LinkedIn. Um, and within that, I actually lead Expect. Everything's got an in it at LinkedIn. And
Yes. Really.
it's a peer-to-peer mentoring program for mums and dads returning from maternity and paternity leave. If they feel that they want to, they can put their hand up and be paired with a return to work mentor that helps
Mm.
them through that transition. So they can either do it before they go off on maternity leave or when they're actually coming back and help support through that transition. And the reason I
Mhm.
got involved with that was because I
Mm.
did it myself. And it was such a saving grace for me. My mentor, Olivia, was amazing and kind of gave me the permission to ask for what I needed when I was coming back to work. I was exclusively pumping. So I did a big pump in the morning, which actually meant I didn't usually finish till like 9, 10 past 9, 9:15. So I couldn't really start work till 9:30 every day. Now I was petrified to go in and say that because I felt like I had to perform in the way that I had before I was a baby, and this wasn't going to make any difference in anything what we did. But actually, just speaking to Olivia, she's like, "Well, whatever it is that you need to succeed, ask for it. What's the worst they can say? No." And obviously, they didn't say that. So it meant that I was able to set myself up for success. The other thing was that when I had those sleepless nights of zero sleep for 3 nights in a row, and I felt like bursting into tears in the office because I was just so tired, I had
Yeah.
someone else to reach out to that wasn't my manager. So I
Mm.
didn't want to say to my manager, I'm really struggling. I don't think I can cope. These aren't the conversations that I wanted to have.
Right.
Having someone else that I could ping and say, hey, I'm really struggling. Like if you're in the office, can we grab a coffee or even a virtual coffee, like just for 20 minutes and having someone to listen and say, "Hey, I get it. I know." And there was, I think, two like occasions where she's like, "Sarah, just go and have it. Go and have an." And
Yeah.
the difference that that made of having someone there that's in your corner that understands it, has been through it,
Mm.
made such a difference. And I think this is why I'm so passionate about it, because often women go off and they have their maternity leave, they come back 12 weeks later, and it's like, boom, right, back to work, off you go. Here's your laptop, here's this, da 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 da. da. And the transition actually, when you're looking at the science of what happens in the brain, all those changes and the chemicals that are still being released from hormones, actually that journey takes 2 years for a woman's hormone levels to return to what it is post pregnancy. 2 years.
Yeah.
I actually feel that I didn't feel like a version of myself that I even recognized till I was nearly, a few months ago. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm the
Right.
same person, but I feel like these support mechanisms need to change when we're having people come back to work. It's not just a week afterwards. It's not just a month afterwards. Maybe it's 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. And being able to have someone there that is a support mechanism that isn't your manager, that you can relate
Mhm.
and has been through it, makes a massive difference.
Mm. That's the key, isn't it? That you have someone in the organization so they kind of understand the culture, they understand what you do, the kind of demands that you have, but it's not related to your work, or at least a manager. And it's so interesting yeah, I don't really hear of many such programs. I'm also curious if you have seen any difference between how it's played out in different countries or regions.
So we have this program in Singapore and Australia. We're looking at actually rolling out in India and the US, but it's in the pipeline.
Oh,
So I think like how it's played out is different for everybody. Again, it's like saying to everyone that goes through matrescence, matrescence is the thing, but your own personal experience is going to be very different. And really, it's up to the mentor and the mentee to decide how that plays out and what they need. I think
right.
one really important element to highlight is this isn't a HR policy. This is something that is separate to
Mm,
HR. So we do have other amazing benefits that sit within that HR realm, but this is something that's done from a peer-to-peer perspective. So actually, it's done at a zero cost, and it's run by volunteers. So people, what
volunteer.
to find is that when someone has been through that mentoring journey themselves as a mentee, they then join up the mentor.
Oh, I love that. Paying it forward.
Yeah, which is really lovely. And for us, it's about making sure that managers know that that resource is there,
Right.
because most people won't put their maternity leave in to a couple of months before they're going to go. But actually, they've been pregnant or, expecting for the last 6 months work. So, making
Oh.
sure that we have that awareness for the leadership as well to say this resource is here for this person if they want it, is really important to kind of have that advocacy.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize it wasn't actually, a part of the benefits of the HR thing, but it's totally ground up.
Yep.
And I think that I can see why it's also probably not something that's, so widespread because yeah, people just didn't think about it, right? It's not it's not something in their job to do that unless you have someone like a Sarah Pantry who yeah is advocating for it.
But I think as well that it's something
Mhm.
that anyone can do. Like
Right.
it really isn't something that anyone can do. And yes, it would be amazing to have our leadership, etc., on board, because actually, if you think
Mhm.
about this kind of program, is very minimal cost, even if it was run through HR. All it is a matching service for mentees. You can put people through their training on LinkedIn Learning, for example, of how to be a mentor. And really, you're going through and having your own experience and supporting someone. So, if we're looking at changing the way that we're bringing people back into work and actually enabling people to stay, this is something that any company can do if you do it in the right way and it's embedded into their culture.
Actually, if I'm an HR person listening to this or someone who wants to start this in my company, do you have resources that are available? Yeah.
Ping me on LinkedIn, the Sara Pantry. Yeah, we don't have things on LinkedIn Learning. We do have like how to be a mentor, how to be a mentee,
Mhm.
how to have those kind of pieces there of those relationships. But if you are specifically looking for more information around that kind of peer to peer mentoring, just contact me and I'll happily share.
Perfect. Okay, so Sarah, I had a kind of afterthought as I was hearing you. I did want to hear a little bit more about your experience with your tribe, the LeanIn community. Like, what has been unexpected? What has been a highlight for you in this?
So I started this and we call it the Motherhood Collective. So it's a lean-in circle. It's a closed circle with 11 ladies in it. And it started in September last year and we meet monthly. And I suppose the thing that I was really concerned about was that nobody knew each other in
Mm,
this. I wanted to have a diverse kind of group of women, depending on what they were, whether they were entrepreneurs, if they're working, or if they're stay-at-home mums, etc., to be able to come together. So one of the things I was concerned about, first of all, was that people wouldn't open up.
mm.
However, I was so wrong, and I don't know if this is the right analogy, but it felt like the first time, it felt like we had starving people at a buffet. Because after you had gone through and said, this is a safe space, we care for each other, this isn't going to go any further, introducing yourself and being able to say why you wanted to join this circle, everything came.
Wow.
And that
Just the
was
right off the bat.
right out the bat. And this is what I mean. When women come together and support each
Mm,
other, amazing things happen. And being able to be part of some of those realizations of how we can do it differently. Like we can do motherhood and life differently in a way that we enjoy and we can be the women that we want to be and the mothers we want to be and the wives that we want to be. So I think from that perspective, it's been an amazing experience of being able to open that realization up and being able to support each.
Well, as we round out our conversation here, what is one thing you want listeners to take away from your story today, Sarah?
Well, if you're going to take one thing and one thing only, matrescence. Matrescence is the word. And, you know, speak to people about it. Don't be frightened to talk to other mothers or other people within your organization, or even just check in if someone's come back to work recently and say, hey, how's it going? Check in with them, ask them about themselves rather than the baby. These are just really small things of if you're thinking about matrescence and what that transformation is, just a check-in or understanding more about it. If you're just someone listening that wants to be able to do something positive, those small, tiny check-ins, I think would mean the world to a lot of people. If you are a mother at home and you have been struggling with that transition of becoming a mother and understanding what that means, please know that you're not on your own, because it's such a lonely place. And, comparison is the thief of joy. Stop looking at everyone on Instagram or whatever and thinking, well, if they can't do it, why can't I? Actually find someone that you trust to be able to speak to about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad that we managed to chat, Sarah, and hearing about the wonderful work that you're doing to put up more conversations about this important topic, to highlight and advocate for working moms inside and outside of the home. And yeah, I'm so encouraged and really inspired. And I'm sure all listeners are too.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on our Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.